Hello, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Kiyan.
This is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where our mother-in-law tried to kiss us and do a lot more than that with us. Because this week we watched A Good Man Goes to War.
Written by Stephen Moffat.
Directed by Peter Hoare.
And aired on June 4th, 2011. I actually didn't know for sure that it was written by Stephen Moffat. I just said that.
Yeah, it was.
Was 99%
because this is the
sure.
Stephen Moffat story of the Stephen Moffat era.
Yeah, and I mean, that can bring us right into how this was sort of made, the behind-the-scenes stuff, which goes all the way back to the mid-90s.
January 6th, 95.
On Usenet, where Stephen Moffat was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if the word for doctor, or the word English word doctor, was derived from the doctor's name and wasn't actually an English word?
I wonder what the response to that post was. That was the one thing we didn't find out, was if he was just laughed off the Usenet group, or if people were like, yeah, that's a kind of cool idea.
Probably the former. I mean, if it was one of the two, I don't know. I think it's a pretty dumb idea. Also, linguistically not even possible, but yeah.
Yeah, there are some questionable things regarding linguistics in this episode. And as soon as I watched this episode, I was thinking in my head, man, Kiyan's going to have some things to say about this.
I mean, I actually liked most of... I liked most of this. I guess.
Yes, I mean, most of it.
I saw the reveal coming from a mile away, to be honest.
That was like me, an assassin for Blake 7. I saw that one coming from a mile away.
Yeah, that one was really obvious.
But basically, now that he's showrunner and he can do whatever he wants, he was like, I'm going to do that thing I proposed in that Usenet group 25 years ago.
By the way, I watched the video with Chris Chibnall and Pip and Jane Baker. It wasn't as bad as people say it was. It wasn't as bad. I mean, maybe if you're in their shoes and that, in their position, and you go in thinking all right, it's just going to be, some casual fans having a nice chat about Doctor Who, maybe. But, these were the diehard fans. And, I don't know. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Chris
Chibnall was a diehard fan who correctly identified Pip and Jane Baker scripts as some of the worst of that era.
But did he have to call them out on national TV for it?
Yes.
Okay.
How will you ever get better if you don't get criticized? In my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the most awkward part of the interview was, I don't think it was Chris Chibnall, it was one of the other fan club members asked them if they had watched the show before writing for it, and Jane was just like, well, no.
That's a bombshell revelation. But I don't think you need to necessarily have watched it to write for it. I mean, I guess it helps. I guess it explains why their scripts are so weak.
I think it really, not to say you can't write a good story without having watched the show before, but I think it really helps.
Yeah, no, I don't dispute that. I just don't think it's required.
No, I guess not.
I could write an episode of what's a television show I've never watched before? Battlestar Galactica, and probably be fine.
Life on Mars.
Life on Mars.
Rebooted after however many years it's been, 12, 13.
Anyway, Moffat is like, I'm going to do that. So he did. He also decided to wrap up a whole bunch of plot threads he had been...
But start some new ones.
Yeah. Well, because this is a mid-season finale, which feels bigger than the season finale from last season to me, but bigger in...
Really?
Yeah, it does. Feels a lot bigger. Probably because the revelation. I was thinking of Matrix Revolutions. The revelation at the end of this episode is pretty consequential. Yeah,
that's true.
In the scope of Doctor Who lore. Especially since there are some subtleties that you may not have picked up on, considering a lot of things involving, they're turning the baby into a weapon, and then you remember back to Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone, and then you remember River Song is in jail for killing someone.
Yeah, no, it all sort of falls into place.
So,
and they telegraph it pretty hard in this episode, at least.
Yeah, they do, but the first time I watched this episode, I didn't see it coming at all. But
really? Huh.
At the same time, I got to the end and I was like, man, I really don't care, because at that point I was super not invested in the River character. So I don't know. Anyway, other than that, it's like pretty interesting. Like most Stephen Moffat scripts, behind the scenes, they're not that interesting because it typically boils down to Stephen Moffat wrote it and then they filmed it. When other writers come into the show, there's typically a lot more interesting things because you know, typically those scripts...
Because you get Stephen Moffat meddling and vetoing things.
Yeah, exactly. And making suggestions like he did to Matthew Graham and you know, budgetary things and... I don't know.
Well,
I'm starting to wonder if Stephen Moffat gave budgetary preference to his own stories, but...
Well, I mean, in a way, like, whether he did or not, like, practically that's what happened because he always writes season finales and season openers in this mid-season finale, which are going to have more focus, you know, higher budget than really anything else. But I read that, you know, this story was originally supposed to have more... because they're not villains, because they're not all villains, but more just alien races.
Yeah, I read that the credits credit the Ood.
Yeah, Ood Sigma was originally going to be in this. And
Ood Sigma!
Yeah, that didn't happen, but they had to credit him anyway for some reason.
Ood Sigma, damn!
Yeah.
They just had an Ood like 2 weeks ago, so I can't imagine that it wasn't like... I mean, they had the costumes sitting around is what I'm saying, so...
Yeah.
I have to wonder why he didn't show up.
I wonder why they still had to credit Russell T in the credits, even though it never did make it to screen.
Well, he credited him for creating the Jadoon, and I guess they just threw the Ood in there as well.
I guess.
Because the Jadoon do show up in this.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, again, interesting because we're getting monsters created by reboot writers now being credited in the credits.
Yeah. Still, I mean, none of the new series creatures are as good as some of the classic show ones.
No, but I think the reboot has some of its recognizable ones. And the Weeping Angels are pretty recognizable.
Has the Angels.
And the Jadoon.
The Jadoon, sure.
And the Ood. I think those are like the big three, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Daleks don't show up in the story, but the Cybermen do, and I meant to look this up, but I think it's the first appearance of the Cybermen in the Stephen Moffat era, excepting... the little cameo they have in Pandorica Opens in the Big Bang. This is the first time they have like a major plot-bearing role in the story. Yeah.
Even then it was pretty small. Is this the first time? I think it is the first time we've seen the sort of clear cyber head where you can see their brain.
No, we saw that before, and now I'm not remembering where we saw it. It might have been in the next Doctor, actually.
Really? Huh? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But all right. You know, it was cool.
Well, anyway, maybe we should just launch into the plot then, because that's kind of where it starts, is with the Cybermen. It starts with Amy doing this voiceover discussion with her baby, where she's like, there's the most wonderful man coming to rescue you. And it telegraphs like it's going to be the Doctor.
Because he's lived for thousands of years.
Yeah.
But it's actually Rory. I mean, Rory's lived for thousands of years.
Yeah, but then she also says he's the last of his kind. And then she says, it's Rory. And I'm like, wait a minute. How is Rory the last of his kind? What kind is Rory the last of?
Wiped out the human race off screen.
No, but actually, what is Rory the last of his kind of?
It's the last Centurion.
Romans, I guess. Yeah, I guess, because he's like referred to as the last Centurion. I guess. But then we see...
Lame.
Kind of.
Ooh.
We see Rory kind of stride into this Cyberman ship dressed as a Centurion. And he's all like, I have a message from the Doctor and a question for me. And the Cybermen just ignore him because they're like, well, what's the message from the Doctor? Then you see like all the other ships blow up in the background. Then Rory's like, where's my wife? Apparently the 12th Cyber Legion, he calls it, monitors all communications like throughout the entire galaxy, I guess. So that's convenient for the Doctor, I mean.
Yeah, the Doctor also made Rory wear the Centurion outfit, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, because when he shows up with Amy, she's like, what? And he's like, oh, it was the Doctor's idea.
Or maybe he's just playing that, now that I go back to it, think about it, maybe he's just playing that off like, oh, yeah, this was totally Doctor's, I didn't want to wear this, no.
Pretty cool outfit, you know, it's not gonna lie. You know, if I was Rory and I had that bitchin' Roman Centurion outfit and cape just lying around, I'd wear it as much as possible. But then the eye patch lady, whose name is revealed to be Madame Kovarian, basically takes the baby away from Amy. He's like, well, you've had your 5 minutes. Baby's ours now.
Yeah, just like real life. No.
What hospital are you birthing at? Stephen Moffat just comes in and your baby's born. He's like, this baby's mine now.
The Stephen Moffat Hospital for abduction? I don't know.
For abduction.
No, but yeah, the child's name is Melody Pond.
Yeah.
And right away I was like, Melody Pond. That's kind of a synonym for river song.
Yeah, but in reverse.
And then I remembered that the only water in the forest is the river. And then that cloth showed up with the names on either side, and I was like, oh, that's how it got reversed. And yeah, pretty obvious.
The first time I watched this, like I said, I didn't see it coming, maybe because I wasn't paying that much attention. The first time I watched this, I heard his like river song, Melody Pond, and I was like, that's a bit of a stretch. Because she's like, well, the only water in the river is the forest, but that doesn't really explain how melody got changed into song, right?
Well, it's just like, I mean, maybe I'm thinking too much into this, but English is like weird in that we have so many different words for one thing. English actually has one of the biggest vocabularies of any language in the world. And that's because of like its linguistic heritage of like being Germanic and also really influenced by the Romance languages and Arabic, surprisingly enough. So like, we have words like melody, song to denote all these different things. Melody doesn't mean the exact same thing as song.
Melody doesn't even mean anything close to the same thing as song.
No, I mean, it does.
Not really.
It's pretty close.
No, why did you pull out your precious Oxford English Dictionary and look up the definitions?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, Really, you don't think melody means something close to song?
No, because a song is composed of a melody and a harmony. A melody is a piece of a song. It doesn't refer to the whole, in my opinion. I took like multiple years of music theory.
Okay, well, I mean, that's coming at it from, the standpoint of knowing a lot about it and also from like this linguistic background, whereas like in translation, who knows what's going to freaking happen.
But at the same time, I feel like if you just went up to someone and it's like, hey, what's that melody you're playing? Like, if they were just jamming out to, I don't know, wow, I'm not thinking of a name of a song. I don't know. I'll Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf. You're not going to go up and be like, hey, what's that melody you're playing? And be like, hey, what's that song? And you'll be like, oh, it's
but
I Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think you're just thinking about it from like an English like only standpoint without considering like the translation aspect of this. I mean, like it seems so simple to me that it would translate like that, or get corrupted like that.
Doesn't seem that simple to me.
I don't find it to be too much of a stretch, but whatever. I mean.
Anyway, the doctor decides to go collect up some pals of his. We don't actually see the doctor for this entire first bit. The TARDIS shows up in the house of Jenny and Vastra. That's the name of the Silurian lady. He also picks up Strax from a battlefield. Apparently Strax is a Sontaran working as a nurse because he's paying like some penance to the doctor. He has some funny lines. Strax is one of my favorite characters, I'm not going to lie, just because he's so funny. But they call the nurse in to tend to this boy, and he's like, I will heal you up so I can one day crush your bones in battle. And they're like, well, you need to work on your bedside manner. And he's like, well...
Yeah, he says he was disgraced or whatever, and that's why he has to, be a nurse and stuff.
Yeah. So the doctor shows up, and he's like, my penance might finally be over. And the doctor also shows up to meet with Dorium, who has appeared once before. He gave River her... What was that bracelet called? The, like, vortex manipulator. That's what it was.
This is Maldivar, right?
Yeah.
The blue guy?
Yeah.
He was in...
Yeah, he gave River the vortex manipulator in Pandora Opens.
Yeah, Pandora Opens.
Like I said in that episode, the only reason why I knew his name was because he comes back. This isn't his final appearance either, which is how I know he's not dead. Even though they really make it out like he's dead.
Yeah, him and Strax are like for sure dead at the end of this, but nope.
Well, so Dorium's, they don't actually need to like reverse it or anything, because when you find out how he lives, it's like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense, like in the context of the story. Strax is pretty explicitly dead on screen, and they just reverse it in like a little extra side tidbit that they released. It's like 2 days later for this battle. that shows like what's going on with everybody 2 days after the battle happens, and they just Strax is alive now. I've never watched that, so admittedly I was extremely confused when Strax showed up on the main show again later on. I was like, didn't he die? So yeah, so he gathers up Dorium, who before the Doctor actually meets with him, he's kind of running away from Kovarian and kind of makes reference that he knows where her secret base is.
Yeah, and we kind of find out who Kovarian is and who she's working with. Surprise, it's the church.
Yeah, she kind of leads the church. Is the kind of implication. Because there's kind of this is kind of weird the way that Moffat sets this up, but I think it works. That there's kind of two different factions on Demon's Run. There's the church, which is we saw in Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone with the clerics and all that, and then there's the second faction, which is the Headless Monks, and they say that they teamed up to just take down the Doctor, which is a thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, as far as I got from the story, the Headless Monks are not part of the church.
They're like a separate thing.
Yeah.
Kovarian's kind of like the head of the church. She's leading it, and she's kind of the one who's come up with this whole plan to kill the Doctor.
Yeah, I got the sense that there were sort of two different factions in the church, one headed by Kovarian, the other led by what's-his-face, the guy making the big speech. But I guess he's just like maybe has his own agenda, which doesn't...
I was actually going to say you've picked up on something that Moffat makes a lot more clear later on that I'd never actually picked up watching the story, so...
I'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, this whole church plotline is the plotline I refer to when I say Stephen Moffat went a little too far with his whole timey-wimey nonsense, especially in the Wedding of River Song at the end of the season. But basically what happens is, the Doctor gathers up these people, and we don't actually see him gathering up some other people who also show up later on, including Henry Avery and Danny Boy.
Oh, yeah. Man, why couldn't Liz Tang have come back?
That's a good question. Why didn't Liz Tang come back? Why didn't Liz Sladen come back? Why didn't he just show up and was like, Sarah Jane, I need your help?
Hadn't she already passed away in 2010?
Had she passed away by this point?
Let's look it up.
Well, I know that the 11th Doctor showed up in the Sarah Jane adventures, so she had to have passed after Stephen
April
Moffat.
19th, 2011.
That would have been the same year as this went out, 2 months before.
Probably like right after they made, finished this ish.
Why didn't some other great people come back like Wilf?
Jack was supposed to be in this originally.
Yeah. I actually remember that.
I think it was just scheduling issues.
Yeah, I think Stephen Moffat tries to fit Jack in a lot of times, and scheduling doesn't work out, and then... Because John Barrowman's always been like, yeah, I'm down to come back as Jack. I love that role.
Yeah, and to this day, I mean, he said that again like a couple months ago.
Yeah. And I think Moffat tried to make it work sometimes. Sometimes it didn't really work out. Like we said in Pandorica Opens, the, quote, dead time agent, unquote, that Dorium got the vortex manipulator off of was supposed to be implied to be Jack, so... Yeah.
Maybe he'll show back up.
There was actually I don't want to spoil too much about the whole Dorium Headless Monks plotline, but Moffat even tried to work into that later on when Dorium shows up again, a way to explain how Jack turned into the face of Bo, but we'll bring that up when we get there.
Sure.
But that also never made it to screen. So the Doctor gathers up his kind of posse, his all-star crew of B-list Doctor Who all-stars. I mean, it's true.
Yeah, it is.
And it feels like Moffat tried to do Stolen Earth, but not as great because these characters aren't as recognizable or as well-known in the Doctor Who universe as Martha and Sarah Jane and Rose and Donna.
Well, it's also the case of the Sontarans are really, they're a big Doctor Who race, and the Silurians as well, but Vastra and Strax are just nobodies, This is the first time we've seen them.
Yeah, but it's implied that there were adventures that took place beforehand.
Right, yeah.
Maybe that's why this kind of doesn't work as well as Stolen Earth, because it introduces a whole bunch of new characters, which can work if the other characters are like recognizable and fleshed out. You know, Dorium is like, who decided Dorium was going to be the character who was going to come back for this?
I liked his role in this the most.
Well, yeah, of all the people the Doctor gathered up,
he was just the most entertaining to watch, sort of, because he wasn't like this. He wasn't from the same sort of group as the rest of them, right? He's not necessarily like a warrior. So him being in this situation was a little more entertaining.
That's true. I guess kind of the whole thing is that the Doctor gathers up warriors.
Yeah.
Except for Dorium.
Yeah. He's just kind of there.
Because he gathers up, you know, let's just run down the list of this before we move on to the one person who doesn't actually come. Because we got Henry Avery and his son, apparently.
Yeah.
Bring a child into this dangerous war zone. Good going, Doctor.
Why not?
We've got Danny Boy, and the other plane also comes with, you know, whoever was piloting that plane who doesn't get named on screen.
Mark
so Danny
Gatiss.
Boy.
I'm just kidding, no.
We get Vastra, Jenny, and Strax, the Paternoster gang, as they're later called. We get Dorium, and is that it?
Lorna.
And Lorna,
she's there,
she's
but like
on the base already.
Well, we should mention her because she had one encounter with the Doctor, and
when she was a kid.
She discusses this with Amy, and Amy's like, yeah, I had an encounter with the Doctor when I was a kid, and the Doctor came back for me, and she makes this comment like, well, aren't you lucky, or something like that. So you get this entire sort of glimpse into her existence, which is like, what if the Doctor never came back for Amy, right? Did people call Lorna insane and stuff like that?
Yeah. You get this kind of feeling that Lorna is supposed to be the anti-parallel to Amy, I guess.
Yeah, and like also how this is the Doctor's fault, right? Like if he never came back for Amy and could have, you know, possibly ruined her life. Although Lorna knows for sure that the Doctor's real because the church is like hunting him.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it's kind of implied that's part of the reason why she joins the church is to try and find the Doctor again.
Yeah, no, I mean, she says that later on.
I couldn't remember if she explicitly said that or not. We see a scene that I'm not entirely sure why it was included, where one of the people in the church gets like inducted into the Headless Monks, and they're just like, are you ready to make a sacrifice? And he's like, and then we never hear of that plot line again. I don't know if you remember that scene.
Yeah, I do. I guess it was just to show, well, sure, maybe, but to show also that like the church gets converted into the Headless Monks, which I don't know if that really comes into play. Well,
not necessarily the church, because the monks are saying every time that they meet a new faith, the faith dedicates or donates one person to join the order of the Headless Monks. And that guy's been chosen as the representative of the church.
Huh. That's interesting.
So there's also a scene now, which is kind of important, where Rory tries to convince River to come to Demon's Run, and she kind of flips through her TARDIS-shaped diary and is like, sorry, can't. I'll be there at the end, though, so don't worry about that. She mentions that the Doctor took her ice skating on the River Thames at the last Great Frost Fair, and Stevie Wonder sung Under the Bridge at the Frost Fair in 1814. Frost fairs, if you don't know, were kind of cool. London used to get cold enough to freeze over the River Thames, and then they would hold a fair on the frozen kind of ice of the River Thames. We actually see a Frost fair in a 12th Doctor episode. Him and his companion Bill go to visit one, which is the only reason why I know what a Frost fair is, to be honest.
It's interesting. Wonder if anyone ever, fell in. Ice was probably pretty thin.
They definitely did. I'm sure they did. But she basically says that she can't, but she'll be there at the end. And I took this to mean that this river's already been to Demon's Run before, and she knows that she'll show up like right at the end. It's not exactly clear or explained how River knows that she'll only show up at the end of the battle, but she does.
Yeah, just go with it.
Yeah, at this point, anything involving River and the timeline is just kind of a just go with it moment.
Unless you're what's-his-name and
Will
come
Brooks.
up with that diagram.
He's definitely by far not the only person to have done that. There are definitely whole sects of fandom dedicated to just trying to plot out a
But he was the one who made like a really graphically well-designed chart for it.
He is a graphic designer. He did for a while. I don't know if he still does, covers for Big Finish. He also does covers for the comic books now. So.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting.
Anyway, yeah, she's like, sorry, can't. And Rory's like, wow, thanks, Mom.
You always do this, Mom.
You always leave us at the critical moment.
No. That's his daughter, not his mom. Oh, God.
How do you know it's not both?
Oh, God. Anything goes with River Song.
Basically.
You're going to go to Demon's Run and you're going to like it.
Yeah, get over here right now, little Missy. Get over here, you little girl. Go to your room. You're grounded.
Go to your cell. Oh, God, that's dark.
Get in your cell. Don't ever come out of there until you want to come back and help us. Anyway.
God, I just read this short story recently, actually. I forget what it's called, but it's by like one of the most famous Twilight Zone writers before the Twilight Zone came out. And it's about like a kid, although by the end you're questioning, like, is it a kid or is it like a freaking demonic hell beast who gets locked in a basement by its parents?
Well, if it's demonic hell beast, then I understand where the parents are coming from. Maybe demonic hell beast is just like a metaphor for kids.
For kid.
Maybe the author just really hated kids and just saw them all as demonic hell beasts. Hey, you don't know. So,
Anyway.
For some reason, this leader guy of the church gathers all the clerics up and he's like, all right, guys, the Headless Monks kill you if you like take down the hoods, but guess what? They're gonna take down the hoods for you all today. Are you ready to rock?
So the monks are unmasked, unhooded, and there's just sort of this little twist of flesh.
Yeah. And I guess Headless Monks was literally headless. But they take down the hood of the final monk, and it's the doctor. But we've had all these scenes that are kind of cool where these two clerics have been like telling all these stories of what the doctor's done. And the guy's like, he blew up the entire 12th Cyber Legion just to make a point. And they're like, we're supposed to be hunting him, not praising him. And he says a couple of other things. He makes a couple references to a couple other stories. I don't remember which now.
Yeah, he says praising is much more expensive or something like that.
So...
That was the guy at the beginning who gets...
beheaded.
Yeah.
And they pull down the hood of the final monk, and it's the doctor. And they all pull their guns on him, and he's like, 3 minutes and 14 seconds. That's all I'm going to need. The lights go out. And we see this whole complicated plan in action, and the lights come back on, and he's gone. But one of the soldiers kind of panics and shoots a Headless Monk, and he crumples over. Allegedly, well, he looks pretty much like he dies.
Yeah, but then Vastra later on in this story is like leaning over, this railing, looking at the scene of battle, and she's like, an entire revolution with no bloodshed.
Maybe she's just ignoring all of the... Maybe it's just like
strewn with dead bodies.
Maybe it's like an ironic, no bloodshed, and like the camera pans around to look at what she's looking at, and it's just bodies everywhere.
Maybe the plasma bolt or whatever just like burns, like cauterizes the wound, and there's no actual blood.
Pretty ineffective weapon then.
I don't know, if you have a big hole in your stomach, I think you're pretty much dead whether the wound's cauterized or not.
I guess. There's also a scene where her and Jenny have some witty banter, and then Jenny's like, why do I put up with you? And then Vastra shoots her tongue out and knocks a dude out. And
that's a new power for the Silurians, as far as I remember.
Well, didn't they introduce that in Hungry Earth Cold Blood because they took away their third eye? And they were like, we ought to give him some other stuff to compensate.
Did they give him the tongue? I don't remember. Maybe.
I thought so. Maybe not, though.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just thought the scene was sexual innuendo for some reason.
I mean, a lot of it is with Vastra and the maid character.
Jenny. Her name's Jenny.
Yeah, Jenny.
When we first meet Vastra, she says that she's killed Jack the Ripper, so...
Yeah.
And eaten him. Forgot when the Silurians became, not cannibals per se, but...
Wasn't it Hungry Earth and Cold Blood that they were implied to eat humans when they, body snatched what's-his-name from the grave?
Yeah, you know what? I guess you're right.
Well, they were doing those experiments on them, but Yeah, I don't remember if it was implied that they ate them. Probably was, but whatever.
Probably was. We'll just go with it.
I don't remember that story too well.
Well, so what happens next is the Doctor wins.
Yeah. And there's still like 25 minutes left, so you know this isn't just, it's not as simple as this.
Yeah, well, so Rory finds Amy with the baby, and, well, he rescues the baby and gives it to Amy, and they have a moment where they cry, and Rory's like, what did you name her? And she's like, I named her Melody. Rory's like, yeah, it's a good name.
He's like, Melody Williams, great name. And then the doctor like barges in, he's like, or I think Amy actually says this, like, no, Melody Pond. Melody Williams is a...
Geography teacher, I think she says.
Yeah, Melody Pond is a superhero.
I don't agree with that.
I do. I 100% agree with it.
Well, only because you know Melody Pond is River's song.
No. Like Melody Pond sounds like the name of like, I don't know, a
fictional
serialized,
character.
Fictional character, which she is, but like the hero of like a kid's book series, like Captain Underpants or something like that.
I guess.
You know,
You really want
Melody
to grow up and have your name be that of a
Pond.
kid's...
Captain Underpants.
be like a kid's book character. Melody Pond's going to grow up and be like 40, and people are going to, huh, you're a kid's character. And she's like, damn it, no, I'm Melody Pond.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't know.
It's like those parents who name their kids like Northwest. And he's like,
Kanye and
oh, it's the first
Kim?
absurd name I thought of. It's like, you're just setting your kid up to be bullied for the rest of his like elementary school career by giving him like a weird name like that. It's actually like, they did a study on this that basically showed that kids with unique or unusual names were like bullied drastically more than kids with quote regular unquote names.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think you need a study to, well, I mean, glad they did one to like confirm it or whatever, but you don't really need, like, that's...
Yeah, you
kind of
shouldn't need a
obvious thing.
study for that, but
Yeah.
the study lends validity to the claim. Anyway, the doctor's like, well, guess I won. And then you remember back to something River says to Rory, where she's just like, demons run. The doctor will soar to greater heights than he's ever flown to before, and then crash down to be lower than he's ever been before as well.
Well, there's a scene where the doctor puts Melody in a crib, and...
Well, right before we get to that, I want to mention there's a scene where he's talking with Vastra, and she's like, you're soaring to great new heights, Doctor. And that was what made me remember back to what River said, because I was like, where's the fall coming? Here it comes. Let's go. And then the Doctor pulls a crib out of the TARDIS, like you said, and puts Melody in it.
Yeah. And he reveals that it was his crib that he slept in when he was a baby.
Or so he claims.
So he claims. So I don't know if that's going to be...
It.
I don't know. Does that come back? Is that something where it's like it wasn't actually
I don't
his?
remember.
So.
I generally don't remember, but I'm skeptical that it's his.
If it is his, it's really strange that his future wife is sleeping in it as a baby.
Yeah. Well, the Doctor then goes to talk with Kovarian, and basically he's like, look, I won. You know, nice try. He has a scene.
Nice try, Kovarian.
He has a scene before that with Vastra, actually, where he's talking with Vastra, and she's like, do you know exactly what that baby is? And the Doctor's like, what? She's like, you told me that the Time Lords could regenerate because of years of exposure to the untempered schism. The Doctor's like, yeah, but you can't just, like, grow a Time Lord. And she's like...
That was over billions of years, not just, like, minutes.
And she's like, yeah, but do you know when that baby was conceived? And the Doctor's like, oh, it was after the wedding. In the TARDIS. Oh, shoot. So and then Vastra's like, they've been doing a lot of genetic editing here too. And he's like, oh no.
Yeah, so it turns out Amy's fear of the baby having a time head
comes back.
Yeah, comes back.
So the Doctor realizes that means the baby was conceived while they were in the time vortex while the TARDIS was traveling.
Yeah.
And the Doctor's like, uh-oh. And Vastra's like, do you really know that baby can't regenerate? And the Doctor's like, I've honestly got no idea.
Yeah, we also get some cuts
Don't worry, they quickly throw that away next week.
Well, we get some cuts to the astronaut and the little girl.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, probably Melody / River. I would assume based on the way it's shot. Based on the way they intersplice those scenes, it's pretty obvious that it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But again, I mean, like I said, there's some subtle things here, River is revealed to be Melody, and first time we meet River, she's like, I'm in jail for killing someone. And there's this whole thing with Vastra, I think it's Vastra. Vastra, really, the hero of plot dumping in the story is like...
Yeah, Vastra's cool. Vastra is like...
Yeah, Vastra's great.
I feel like I feel like well, one, the makeup and CG would probably be too expensive to do regularly. And people probably wouldn't accept a non-humanoid companion.
They accepted K9.
Yeah, but K9 was always off in the corner doing his own
thing. Except a chameleon for the 2 episodes he showed up in.
Yeah, I don't know. But, I mean, budgetary reasons as well as like...
Yeah. No, it probably would be too expensive to dress Neve McIntosh coming back from Hungry Earth Cold Blood in the costume every week. But what I was going to say, she basically says like, oh, they were building, or they're going to turn, or they're using Melody to become a weapon to kill you, Doctor. Then you start to piece it all together. You're like, wait, so Melody's River. River was in jail for killing someone.
Yeah.
She says, and also there's another subtle connection that shows that it's the Doctor. When River's introduced, this is Stephen Moffat indicating they actually had this planned out since the beginning.
Or just threw something in and then went back and was like, all right, this is how we're going to touch back to that.
In Flesh and Stone and Time of Angels, she says that she's in jail for killing a good man. And then in the whole plot of this episode is the Doctor's a good man. And then he's like, no, I'm not a good man. Yeah.
Well, this is interesting because this is also, the River and the Doctor are basically going in different directions. I mean, kind of, it gets complicated here and there. They're basically, in opposite directions. And the Doctor kills River. Like in a way, but saves her. Well, he saves her, but like also
she sacrifices herself to save him.
But he is like, he doesn't stop her death. He just uploads her.
Well, he can't stop her death is the thing, and that was the other thing is that he was upset about it, but then he discovered that he could upload her memory, which does save her in a way. It saves her kind of consciousness. Yeah. And but being.
He's in the room. I forget, was he like knocked out or chained to the wall or something? I don't remember, but like he's there.
Well, she handcuffs him to the
she
thing.
handcuffs him to something. But like, I guess she kills him later on. Killed him for her. And I guess this is where the church timeline also gets just really fucked.
It does. That I'm going to have to beep out in post.
Well, look, it was the only word that could potentially describe what this even is.
Just wait till the wedding of River song. Wait.
So the church imprisoned River for killing the Doctor, and in this they're going back in time to stop that from ever happening by using the baby, but they also cause the River to kill the Doctor.
Well, so that's...
And the Doctor, who doesn't know any of this, is just there.
Well, so that's... I don't want to spoil too much about this whole plot thread, but like you picked up on, there's kind of 2 competing factions in the church.
Yeah.
And later on, you find out the Covarian chapter is the one that wants to kill the Doctor, whereas the other chapter just kind of wants to imprison him.
Okay, so...
Which is why the other chapter is the one that imprisons River when she kills the person she kills.
Yeah, so but those
allegedly
2 factions
kills, by the way,
are on different like time tracks, or they're on different timelines or something. I think
it's Stephen Moffat.
I think.
Welcome to the Moffat era.
Yeah, so it kind of works, right? Like one of these factions wants to just imprison River, but one wants to kill the Doctor, so one is like a previous incarnation. Okay, so oh god, this is actually really confusing.
I think it's best to just wait till we have the entire story before you try to piece it all together.
I think I've pieced most of it together, to be honest. I think I'm pretty much right.
But I can see that you're having a bit of an aneurysm trying to understand. So I'm gonna say maybe wait till we've got the whole story before you try to fill in the holes.
Yeah. I think I have the general gist of what's going on.
I mean, this story, in my opinion, for that is just great. There are a lot of things I don't like about the story, but let's explain what happens now. Basically Kavarian says, well, fooling you once was an honor, Doctor, but fooling you twice in the same way, that's a pleasure. And basically signs off, and the Doctor's like, oh, damn it.
And it turns out the melody song...
Pond.
God, yeah. Pond.
We didn't even talk about Lorna dying. Before the Doctor runs into the baby, Lorna dies.
Yeah.
She gives Amy a little kind of sewing that she did, which is, it's not like a blanket. I forgot what she calls it, but it's a little
just
thing.
A charm.
It's got Melody's name in Lorna's planet's native language.
Yeah. The Forests of Gamma is what it was called.
Gamma Uranus, I think it was. I think there was an extra word after Gamma.
Yeah.
And then she dies, and the doctor kind of comforts her as she dies. And she's like, do you remember me? And the doctor like, yes. She's like, we ran so much, didn't we? And he's like, yes, we ran all the way. And then she dies, and the doctor kind of just goes, who was she? Which is supposed to be this huge character-defining moment for the 11th Doctor that he's like, doesn't even remember these people that he...
Yeah. It was. I mean,
Yeah. I don't know why I said it's supposed to be when it was. It's a really sad moment, too, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it is.
One of the sadder deaths in Doctor Who, if only because right after she dies, the Doctor goes, well, who was she?
Yeah. I agree with that. I think it worked somehow, even though she was introduced literally 10 minutes before her death. But, like we said, the circumstances of it. So anyway, Melody Pond baby version is Flesh.
Flesh clone.
Yeah.
Of course she's Flesh.
Yeah.
When you find out more about what the church is called, there's other things that make me wonder if Moffat really did have this planned all the way back since Silence in the Library. And sometimes I think he did, and sometimes I think he didn't.
He's had this entire thing planned out since the early 90s.
But Melody Pond, River shows up now, and the Doctor goes angrily off on her. Another moment where, again, kind of shows the 11th Doctor is not that jovial.
Yeah.
Because he kind of gets really angry and he starts yelling at her. He's like, where were you? You could have prevented all this.
Right,
And River's like, no, this is exactly what was always going to happen if you were involved. Don't you get it? And then she says the line about us getting the word doctor from him, but then she says something else which I think is interesting, where she says, in some cultures, doctor means bringer of war or a great warrior.
Right.
Kind of touching on the thing that Moffat introduced last season, of the Doctor's more of a warrior than anything else. And which will be touched on again later on. Although this is definitely by far the most subtle and effective way that I think it's done.
Sure. And do you also think... I'll touch on this at the end.
And then she basically... The Doctor's like, well, who are you, River? Tell me right now. And she's like, I am telling you. And she puts his hand on the crib, and he kind of has a moment of realization. He's like, oh my God, that means you and them and me. And River's like, yep. And Amy's like, what the hell's going on? Because Amy's like really pissed.
Yeah, Amy even pulls a gun on River after the Doctor leaves.
Yeah, but then River's like, you don't want to do that. And Amy's like, why not? And she's like, here, let it translate. She's like, I can't, it's Gallifreyan on the crib. She's like, Gallifreyan doesn't translate, which is kind of weird. But she's like, I'm talking about this charm. And then she's like, the only water in the forest is the river.
Yeah, because the people of Gamma, whatever it's called, Arona.
I guess the whole planet is like a forest. They don't have a word for pond, is basically her point.
Yeah.
And she, Amy sees the little bibbidi boop.
The text on it changes from, the language of the forest or whatever
to River Song.
And then as if that wasn't enough, River Song is like, you're my parents. And they're just like, what?
And then she says, look, I know the Doctor will find your kid for you.
Yeah, because as soon as the Doctor realizes that Melody Pond is River, he's like, oh, I know exactly where she is. And he goes off in the TARDIS.
Yeah. And then River's like, I know he'll find your daughter for you. And the reason why I know this is because I'm still alive, so... Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it ends. And there's no next time trailer.
It just says Doctor Who's coming back in autumn or whatever.
It says, let's kill Hitler.
Boy. So, I mean, that's an interesting thing, too, is like the next episode is going to be its own story. It's not going to continue on from early. I mean, it's going to have stuff from it, but it's like it's going to be just its own kind of. Yeah,
some people consider
conflict.
This a two-parter, but I think it's like too disconnected for it to be considered a two-parter. There are definitely connective threads between the two, and River Song is really the connective thread between the two stories that's most prominent / Melody Pond, but you can call it River Song.
But I mean, based on that title, I don't know anything about the episode, but just based on the title, the conflict is entirely different in the next episode.
It is, actually. And I feel like, personally, next week's episode is a poor follow-up to this one.
Huh. Because
I think this one actually introduces a lot of really cool things into the lore, the River Song thing is obviously the most prominent, but also, this idea that in some cultures across the universe, doctor means warrior, which makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess we can sort of get into the other topics section type thing now, which doesn't really make sense. Like linguistically, it's probably impossible. Obviously, we're dealing with fantasy languages.
I was going to say, I think you're thinking of it from an Earth perspective,
but
I think if you look at it from an alien perspective, remembering that aliens don't speak English, they speak a language that gets translated through the TARDIS, but the doctor's name to them is still going to be doctor, right? So doctor as a word doesn't exist on that planet at all. Yeah, I guess
the only way it would work is if they hear doctor and it's not doctor in their language. If they have that word, it's doctor. Well, do you know what I mean?
Well, I'm thinking the opposite. I think Riff is saying the word doctor untranslated means warrior. Some languages added a word to their language and that word is doctor and that means warrior.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, obviously we don't know what alien races and languages are out there and whether they have the equivalent of the English word doctor, but if they do, then there's I don't really care at the end of the day. It's interesting.
I think it's
I like the idea.
Like people's names don't seem to be translated between languages. Those seem to,
I guess,
to stay constant.
So that's the only way it would work is if what you just said is the case. If it's considering the translation circuit, I guess, considers doctor a name and not a title or word.
Yeah.
But yeah. There's also some other linguistic shenanigans going on. The pun with demons run, where it's it's demons possessive run, but it's also demons run when a good man goes to run in fear.
Demons
when a good
plural.
Yeah, and I guess this thing was named in English, but maybe not. This is far in the future.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're still humans.
Strange.
So.
Yeah, they're still humans. So I guess it works.
The good man thing is something that's really hammered home in this. Everybody calls the Doctor a good man in this, and Covariant says the problem with good men is that they have. What does she say now? I
don't remember.
Wish I had written down the line. She says, you don't have to be afraid of good men because they.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They have too many rules or something, and the Doctor says,
was it.
"Now is not a day to find out why I have so many rules." And he says, "I'm definitely not a good man now. Or now's not a day to find out why I have so many rules." It's interesting. It kind of it brings up this concept that the Doctor has kind of a disconnect with how he sees himself and how everybody else sees himself. At least the 11th Doctor specifically.
Oh yeah.
The 11th Doctor definitely. Again, this really plays into my idea that the 11th Doctor is not as flippant and jovial as a lot of people like to make him out to be. He's definitely kind of 7th Doctor-ish sometimes, especially, in this episode, I think he is. This episode feels very 7th Doctor-ish, and that the Doctor shows up with this whole master plan, and it just all completely works out, save for the fact that he didn't see that the baby was flesh. Because if it wasn't for that, it would have worked out perfectly, right?
Yeah, I think the 7th Doctor I think the one Doctor who the 11th Doctor is most similar to is the 7th. Even though it might seem like he's most similar to the 10th at first glance, but I don't think so.
No, I think 11, I would describe him as a combination of the 2nd and 7th Doctors. I think he has that kind of affable, what is it? What is the word I'm looking for? Affable kind of unassuming nature about him that the 2nd Doctor did, but underneath he's brilliant, scheming mind of anger. Because he gets incredibly angry in the story. He yells at River when she shows up right at the end of the battle.
Yeah.
And, things like that kind of indicate that this Doctor's, not as nice as he kind of claims he is.
No, yeah, he's definitely not.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about was a line from, I guess, the Bishop. He says, "We are soldiers of God," when he's talking to the clerics, which I just thought was an interesting line because kind of, made me throw back to, the Crusades.
Well, there's a part in this, I forget who says this, I forget what's even going on in this scene, but there's someone says, "They're starting the attack prayer."
Yeah, to Dorium's talking about the monks. Forgot to mention that Dorium gets... Well, we don't actually know what happens to Dorium because it happens off screen, but he's like, "Oh, the monks will understand. It's just business. They'll understand me." And he just walks out.
You hear his screams of agony, so I thought he was dead.
And you hear a sword slash.
I thought he was dead. Though we should also mention the monks have, You think they're like lightsaber type things, but they're actually just like
Laser
glowing swords.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story is interesting in that, like, the bulk of the plot of this is not actually the Doctor coming up with a way to save the day. The bulk of the plot of this is the Doctor's already won, and then he gets blindsided into realizing he's actually lost. If you look at most of the plots of the other episodes, a lot of the plot is the Doctor lands, he meets some group or person that is being suppressed or opposed, and he helps them rise up and win. And most of the plot of the episode is him coming up with that way of kind of overthrowing the oppressors, or
like failing for 3.5 episodes, and then something just randomly happens, or they have like this brilliant idea and they enact it in like 5 minutes.
But the plot of this episode is interesting in that it's not that. It's the Doctor gathers some friends and he immediately just wins, and then the rest of the episode it's him kind of gloating in victory and realizing that its victory is actually defeat.
Yeah, and this is actually something I wanted to bring up. I wish more Doctor Who episodes were like this, because this one kind of just throws you in, and it allows for a lot of the context to be through, dialogue. You pick up on things. You pick up on what's going on as people say things, rather than just like, we just landed in the TARDIS. Let's find out what's going on.
It's definitely more interconnected with other stories, I think, and it wraps up, I think, pretty much all the plot threads from the first half of the season.
And starts its own
and starts it introduces a couple of ones for the rest of the season. We still haven't exactly resolved the Doctor's death at Lake Silencio yet, but we now know that, or at least we're pretty confident that little girl is River.
Yeah.
That River's the one who is involved some way in this death, and so it's kind of weird to be talking as if this is like a season finale in the middle of the season, because it's the middle of the season, but
it is. It's the mid-season finale.
This is the first time the Doctor Who season was interrupted in the reboot.
Yeah, and I think they did a really good job with it, because I think this cliffhanger at the end, this reveal that River is Amy and Rory's daughter, is the best cliffhanger in all of Doctor Who.
I agree, but it also introduces some questionable things. Remember when Amy was coming on to the Doctor in that one episode?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's his mom-in-law now, and that... Yeah.
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 Yep.
Just, yeah.
Yeah, but the Doctor's really going to change his attitude towards Rory now that
he
knows he's his dad-in-law. I'm kidding.
You don't control me, Dad. I'm a rebel. Can't hold me down. You can't stop the signal. This cliffhanger is also interesting because the Doctor runs off without Amy and Rory at the end of the episode, which that's, I think, the biggest question that has to be resolved next week.
He's going to elope with their daughter. He knows where she is.
Oh, God.
And he's...
Oh, God. Oh, God. Well, I think that's the biggest thing that needs to be resolved next week is the Doctor and his companionless TARDIS, because he left without all the other people. He just dropped off on Demon's Run. Yeah. Vastra, Strax, Jenny, Henry Avery, by the way, Danny Boy, they're all still there. Just like, well, I guess we're just stranded here on this rock in the future. So
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, but I do like the story, actually. I do rather enjoy it. I know some people don't enjoy it that much, but I rather enjoy it.
Well, as we found out last week, opinions can be wrong.
Oh boy, on that bombshell. If you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorative.vegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on River Song being Amy and Rory's daughter. Or son. As we know, Time Lords can change gender during a generation.
And maybe she's also one of their mothers/fathers.
Oh God. We meet Rory's dad next season. I don't want to spoil it, but we meet Rory's dad next season.
And is he River? That's the question.
Every character in Doctor Who is River. I like
Or the Doctor.
Yeah, I like the theory that every character in Doctor Who is just another regeneration of the Doctor, so the entire universe is just the Doctor.
That would be the ultimate Stephen Moffat moment.
I mean, would it be very end of time master race? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it would.
You can reach us. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, and next time we're watching Let's Kill Hitler. But until then, the end.